The hotel lobby was alive with quiet energy. Guests walked in and out, some dressed in elegant clothes, others in travel-worn jackets and tired shoes. The sunlight streamed through tall glass windows, catching on the polished marble floor and sparkling chandeliers, making the entire space feel grand and almost unreal. The concierge moved gracefully between the guests, her hands folded neatly in front of her as she offered polite smiles and gentle nods. She had been working at the hotel for years, always quiet, always professional, always unnoticed by most people. But that day, everything was about to change. A limousine pulled up in front of the entrance, and the unmistakable sound of a valet car door closing caught her attention. She looked up from straightening a row of brochures on the front desk. Out stepped a man in a perfectly tailored suit, his presence radiating wealth and power. He had the kind of confidence that made people glance twice, half out of respect and half out of fear. He did not look like someone who was used to waiting. The concierge watched as he waved away the valet's assistants and walked straight into the lobby, scanning the space with a critical eye as he approached. A small group of guests by the piano whispered to each other, their curiosity palpable. The piano was a magnificent grand instrument, its glossy black surface reflecting the sunlight. It was usually just a part of the hotel's decor, but today it seemed to hold a quiet promise of something more. The concierge instinctively knew that attention would soon turn toward that corner of the lobby. She continued her work, arranging flowers in the vases near the seating area. But she could feel the weight of eyes on her. The man stopped near the piano, his gaze fixed not on the instrument itself, but on the concierge. There was a smirk on his face, one that seemed to say he knew exactly how the world worked and how easily it could be bent to his will. "Good afternoon," he said, his voice smooth and commanding. He didn't wait for a reply. Instead, he looked around at the few guests still lingering near the piano, and then back at her. "So, this is where talent is supposed to live, huh?" he asked, a hint of amusement in his tone. The concierge kept her expression neutral, offering only a small, polite smile. She had learned long ago that such people thrived on reactions, and giving them one was often the first mistake. But she felt the heat of his stare, and the laughter from a couple of guests nearby who had caught his joke. He leaned casually against the edge of the piano, tapping the lid lightly with a single finger. "You know," he continued, "I once heard that anyone can play if they have the gift. But most of the time, it's just a lot of noise pretending to be music." The concierge's hands tightened slightly around the flowers she was arranging. She knew he was trying to provoke her, trying to make her feel small in front of everyone. But instead of anger or defensiveness, she felt a quiet resolve. She would not let his arrogance disturb her calm. Still, curiosity buzzed in her chest. Who was this man to make such claims? Who gave him the right to mock others for doing something they loved? He straightened suddenly, his eyes glinting with amusement as if he had just thought of the perfect joke. "If you can play that piano," he said, his tone dripping with mockery, "I'll marry you." The words hung in the air, shocking in their audacity and absurdity. Guests nearby laughed nervously, unsure whether to join in or pretend they hadn't heard. Some murmured to each other, trying to stifle their reactions. The concierge froze for a split second, but only to make sure she had heard correctly. He had said it. He had really said it. There was a moment of silence after his words, a kind of pause that made the lobby feel larger than it was. The concierge carefully set the flowers back in their vase and looked up at him, her eyes calm and steady. She did not laugh. She did not scowl. She simply smiled faintly, a smile that held neither offense nor ridicule. She had learned early in life that pride was often more dangerous than insult, and that calmness in the face of mockery could be more powerful than words. The millionaire, sensing her silence, leaned back slightly and raised his eyebrows. expecting a reaction. "Well?" he said, a little impatient now. "Are you going to laugh? Are you going to tell me I'm ridiculous?" He glanced at the guests again, hoping for a few nods of agreement, a few chuckles to underline his joke. Some did smile awkwardly, unsure how to respond. Others simply watched, intrigued. There was an air of anticipation now, as if the entire lobby held its collective breath. The concierge took a slow step toward the piano, keeping her posture straight and her movements deliberate. Every eye followed her, drawn by the curiosity that had been quietly building. She reached the instrument and placed her hands lightly on the keys, not yet playing, just letting her fingers hover over them. The piano seemed to respond to her presence, its polished surface glinting under the sunlight, almost as if it too was waiting. The guests whispered among themselves. Some doubted she could play at all. Others began to wonder quietly if there was more to this quiet concierge than met the eye. The millionaire's smirk faltered slightly. He leaned closer to the piano, trying to catch a glimpse of what she might do. He had expected either silence or an awkward stumble, but there was something in her posture, the way her fingers rested lightly on the keys, that hinted at a hidden confidence. He laughed softly, more out of disbelief than amusement. "This will be fun," he said, louder this time, so everyone could hear. "I'll be right here when you fail. Don't worry." A few guests shifted in their seats. Some pulled out their phones, anticipating a scene worth recording. The concierge didn't seem to notice, or perhaps she simply didn't care. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, feeling the familiar pulse of a melody forming in her mind. She hadn't played in public for years. Life had taken her in directions that left little room for music, yet the skill, the passion, the love for the piano had never left her. She could feel the notes in her bones, the rhythm in her fingers. She took a deep breath, letting the anticipation melt into focus. The millionaire leaned back, confident. He adjusted his cufflinks and watched her with a mixture of amusement and expectation. Guests exchanged glances, the tension growing. Everyone sensed that something unusual was about to happen, though no one could predict what. The concierge's calm presence seemed almost to challenge him, to quietly say, "You think you know the world, but you don't know me." Then, just as the silence reached its peak, she pressed a single key, a soft, clear note that filled the lobby with a delicate sound. The room held its breath. It was not loud, not showy, but precise, elegant, and full of intention. The note lingered, and something unspoken passed through the air. People leaned forward, unable to pull their eyes away from the simple, yet powerful connection between the woman and the piano. The millionaire's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of doubt appearing across his face. He had expected either silence or embarrassment, yet the first note suggested skill, control, and artistry. He tried to hide his surprise with a cough, but it didn't work. The concierge continued, her hands moving effortlessly across the keys, finding the melody that had lived inside her for years. Waiting for this exact moment, guests watched in awe as she began to play, her music weaving through the room like a story being told without words. The melody was gentle at first, almost shy, but it grew in strength and beauty with each passing moment. Even the chandelier seemed to catch the notes and reflect them around the room, sparkling in harmony with the music. People stopped moving, stopped talking, stopped thinking about anything else but the piano and the woman who played it. The concierge's face remained serene, but her eyes held a quiet fire. She played not to impress, not to compete, but because the music was a part of her, a piece of herself that could no longer stay hidden. The millionaire, who had walked in thinking himself untouchable, could no longer maintain his smug confidence. The laughter he had expected to hear from others never came. Instead, there was a stunned silence, punctuated only by the soft, perfect notes emerging from the piano. He shifted in his seat, uncomfortable, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing and hearing. How could this quiet, unassuming woman, someone he had dismissed with a single mocking sentence, possess such talent? He glanced around, seeking validation from the guests, but found none. Every face reflected the same astonishment he felt. Whispers of admiration passed through the crowd. "She's incredible. I had no idea. Where did she learn to play like that?" The concierge did not stop, her fingers dancing over the keys with skill and emotion. The room seemed to shrink around her, every eye focused on the music, every heart feeling it in its own way. She had turned a moment meant to humiliate her into a display of grace, beauty, and power. The millionaire, for the first time that day, felt small. Not because he was physically tiny, but because he had underestimated the quiet strength of someone he had dismissed. As the final note lingered in the air, the lobby was silent for a long moment. It was as if time itself had paused to honor the music, to honor the woman who had played it. Guests slowly began to clap, some rising to their feet, their faces alight with genuine amazement. The concierge rose from the piano with quiet dignity, offering only a modest bow. She had not played for attention, yet she had captivated everyone present. The millionaire stood frozen, unsure of how to answer. The next morning, the hotel lobby was quieter than usual. The previous day's events had left a subtle ripple through the staff and the guests who had lingered to see the performance. The concierge arrived early, her footsteps soft against the polished marble floor, carrying a calm that belied the quiet excitement that had followed her home in her thoughts. The piano, once just a piece of furniture, now seemed almost alive, as if it remembered the music and the hush of the audience that had hung on her every note. Staff, members who had been on duty yesterday, whispered quietly among themselves as they prepared the lobby. The bellhops exchanged glances, recalling the moment the millionaire had leaned against the piano, laughing, and then the silence that had followed the first note. Even the cleaning staff, who had been in the shadows, admitted to themselves that they had been spellbound. The concierge greeted everyone with her usual polite smile, but there was a quiet confidence in her that hadn't been there before. She knew people were talking about her, and she didn't mind. The hotel manager, a tall man with sharp eyes and a kind smile, approached her desk. "Good morning," he said, though his voice carried a hint of something else, curiosity, maybe, or wonder. "I hope you don't mind me saying, but yesterday, well, everyone is still talking about what happened." The concierge looked up, her calm gaze meeting his. "It was just a piece I played," she said softly, shrugging slightly. "I didn't do anything special." The manager smiled, though he didn't quite look convinced. "Special? It was extraordinary. You have no idea how many guests are asking if they can hear it again, or if you might play for them tonight. The lobby has never been so alive." She nodded, but said nothing more. Her focus remained on her duties, arranging the brochures, checking the reservations, and ensuring that the guests felt welcome. Word of the piano performance had begun to spread beyond the hotel lobby. Some guests had recorded snippets on their phones and shared them online. By the next morning, the concierge's brief performance had started to reach people who were not even aware of the hotel's existence. Social media pages were buzzing with admiration. "Unbelievable talent," one post read. "The concierge played the piano like a master," said another. Comments poured in from people who had never even seen her. And while the concierge did not care for fame, she was quietly aware of the attention her music was garnering. Meanwhile, the millionaire had left the hotel that night with a sense of discomfort he was not used to feeling. He had never expected the silence, the awe, and the applause that followed her final note. The moment he had thought would humiliate her, instead became a mirror for his own arrogance. He spent hours replaying her performance in his mind, unable to shake the feeling that he had misjudged her. People often laughed at her in their conversations. He thought, because she seemed ordinary, but ordinary had never sounded like that dot as the morning passed. Guests trickled into the lobby, some intentionally, others by chance. Each person who heard the story of the previous day's piano playing came with anticipation in their steps. They watched her move gracefully through her duties, wondering if she would play again, if even a single note might emerge. There was a mixture of curiosity and respect in the air, a silent acknowledgement that the quiet concierge had become more than just someone who guided guests to their rooms or answered their questions. She had become a symbol of hidden talent, of grace under pressure. A few of her coworkers tried to engage her in small talk, eager to understand the story behind her performance. "Did you study music somewhere?" one asked cautiously. She smiled faintly, shaking her head. "A long time ago," she said, "but I stopped. Life had other plans." She didn't elaborate, and no one pressed. The mystery only made her scene more intriguing. People admired her not just for her skill, but for the quiet humility with which she carried herself as the day went on. More and more guests arrived, some asking to see the piano, some simply curious about the woman who had played. The concierge continued her work as always, answering questions, guiding visitors, and maintaining the calm order of the lobby. Yet there was a shift in the atmosphere. People spoke in hushed tones, eyes darting to her whenever she passed. There was respect now, a recognition that had not existed before. Even the bellhops, who had long treated her as just another member of staff, now paused and watched her move with a new appreciation. The hotel itself seemed to adjust to her presence in a subtle way. The sunlight seemed brighter near the piano, reflecting off its polished surface, as if it wanted to highlight her performance. Flowers arranged in the vases seemed to lean slightly toward the piano, as though eager to witness what might come next. Even the chandeliers above seemed to twinkle with extra brilliance, catching the light like a stage spotlight. Though it was still early, there was a sense that the lobby had been transformed into a place of quiet reverence. Later in the day, a group of regular guests arrived, whispering among themselves as they took in the lobby. One of them recognized her and gasped softly, pointing discreetly at the piano. "Is it true? She played here yesterday?" the other asked. "Yes," the first whispered, eyes wide. "I heard it. She's incredible." They watched her for a moment, noting the poise in her posture, the calm in her gaze. She moved as though nothing extraordinary had happened. Yet everyone watching felt that they were in the presence of someone remarkable. The millionaire, too, had returned, though not in the grand fashion of the day before. He had come quietly, almost cautiously, slipping into the lobby without fanfare. He wanted to see if yesterday's performance had been a one-time event, a lucky fluke, or if there was truly something extraordinary about her. He paused by the piano, watching her from a distance, trying to hide the curiosity and the slight unease in his chest. He had expected to be the center of attention, yet here he was, almost invisible, observing her from the sidelines. He watched her interact with guests, answering questions with a calm efficiency, smiling politely when someone complimented the hotel, always polite but never seeking the spotlight. His amusement from yesterday had faded into something different, a mix of respect and fascination. He realized that she had not only played beautifully, but had handled the attention, the embarrassment he had intended, with grace and dignity. He had expected to feel power. Instead, he felt small as afternoon turned to evening. The lobby continued to fill with guests and curious onlookers. Some of them had come because of the stories circulating online, some because they had heard from friends or colleagues. Each new arrival added to the sense of anticipation, a quiet hum of expectation in the air. People began to ask the concierge if she would play again. She would smile, but she didn't answer immediately, preferring to wait to see who truly wished to hear the music and who simply wanted to witness spectacle. The concierge's quiet composure drew people in. Unlike performers who sought applause, she seemed to draw attention without effort. Guests felt an almost magnetic pull toward her and the piano. Children stared, fascinated by her skill. Adults leaned in, curious. Older guests smiled, remembering a time when music had moved them deeply. The piano had become a bridge, connecting people of different ages, backgrounds, and stories through something universal: sound and emotion. Staff members whispered among themselves, sharing observations of the guests' reactions. The bellhops marveled at the way people stopped mid-conversation when she passed. The cleaning crew remarked on the way even the air seemed to shift in the room, as if the lobby itself recognized that something extraordinary had happened here. And the concierge, ever quiet, moved through her day with the same steady grace, aware of the growing attention, but never letting it change her demeanor. Even the hotel manager found himself drawn into the story. He had seen her play only briefly, yet he could not forget the moment the lobby went silent at her touch. He had always appreciated professionalism and skill in his staff, but this was different. This was magic, the kind that could not be forced or faked, only lived. He watched her interact with guests and staff alike, noting the quiet authority she carried, the way people instinctively respected her presence without knowing why. As evening approached, the concierge finally allowed herself a moment to sit near the piano, her fingers brushing lightly over the keys. She did not play yet. She simply let her hands rest, feeling the smooth surface under her touch. The memory of yesterday's performance lingered in her mind, both a comfort and a quiet reminder of how quickly life could change in a single moment. Guests continued to gather, whispering excitedly, hoping for a repeat performance. Yet she remained calm, letting the anticipation build naturally. The millionaire observed her from a few steps away. He had tried to convince himself he was indifferent, that he had come merely to satisfy curiosity, but he could not deny the pull of the moment. The room seemed to hum quietly with the promise of music, and he could feel that something remarkable was about to happen again. The quiet concierge, once invisible to him and others, had become a force he could not ignore or remind her that talent, humility, and grace often went hand in hand, and that no amount of wealth or arrogance could overshadow them. By the time the sun had set, and the lobby lights reflected warmly on the marble floors, a small crowd had gathered, a mixture of hotel guests. The morning after the second day, the hotel lobby carried a new kind of energy, one that was hard to ignore. Guests whispered among themselves as they checked in, still talking about the quiet concierge who had captivated everyone with her piano. The story had spread far beyond the hotel walls. Some had watched video clips on social media. Others had heard from friends or colleagues who had been there in person. Yet, despite the attention, she moved through the lobby with the same calm precision she always had, answering questions, guiding visitors, and maintaining a quiet order that made the space feel welcoming to all. Staff members looked at her differently now. Where once she had been just another member of the team, they now regarded her with a mix of awe and respect. The bellhops exchanged knowing glances as she passed. Even the cleaning staff, who usually moved unseen in the corners of the lobby, paused briefly when she walked by, as though sensing a shift in the air. She noticed this, of course, but she never let it change her demeanor. She was aware of her effect on others, yet she carried herself with humility and grace. Word of her talent had reached regular guests, people who visited the hotel often. Many arrived early, hoping to witness a repeat of the performance from 2 days ago. There was a quiet anticipation, a sense of expectation in the air. Some sat in the chairs near the piano, pretending to read, but really watching her every move. Others leaned against the railing, whispering quietly, exchanging theories about her past. Questions swirled. Had she studied at a music conservatory? Did she come from a family of musicians? How had someone so ordinary in appearance achieved such extraordinary skill? The concierge, meanwhile, went about her morning duties with serene focus. She arranged flowers in the lobby, checked reservations, and guided guests to their rooms with her usual calm efficiency. Yet her mind drifted occasionally to the piano, the memory of yesterday's performance still vivid in her thoughts. She had not played publicly for years, not since she had made the difficult choice to leave the world of music behind. Life had required her attention in other ways, and she had set aside her passion. But the piano had always remained a part of her, waiting quietly for the moment it could emerge again. A few guests, emboldened by the stories they had heard, approached her cautiously. "Are you really the one who played yesterday?" One asked, a mixture of disbelief and admiration in their tone. She smiled softly and nodded. "Yes," she said quietly. She could see their eyes light up. Their curiosity piqued, but she did not elaborate. She had learned long ago that talent often spoke louder when left unexplained. Words could shape perception, but music could reach deeper, touching hearts in ways that description never could. The hotel manager, who had observed her performance from a distance, approached her again. "I hope you don't mind me saying this," he began carefully, "but there's something about you that draws attention in a way I've never seen before. Guests are asking if you will perform again. Some even want to book private sessions. They say you have a rare gift." She offered a small, polite smile and replied softly, "I appreciate that, but I'm here to do my job. Playing is a part of me. Yes, but it isn't what I'm here for." Despite her words, she could feel the growing curiosity around her. Guests lingered longer than usual, waiting to see if she would sit at the piano. Staff members whispered quietly to each other, sharing their observations. Some had begun to speculate about her past. "Did you know she used to study music professionally?" One bellhop asked another. The other shook his head. "I had no idea. She always seemed so quiet, so ordinary. But now, she's extraordinary." The phrase hung in the air, a reminder of how easily people underestimated her until they witnessed her skill. The concierge herself thought about her past, often during these moments of quiet. She had trained in music for years, dedicating hours every day to practice, learning to express emotion through every note. But circumstances had forced her to step away, to focus on supporting her family and making ends meet. Music had not disappeared from her life entirely, but it had been reduced to a private solace, something she carried within her rather than shared with the world. And yet, in the moments she touched the piano, it all came back: muscle memory, emotion, intuition all intertwined to create something that could no longer be contained. As the morning progressed, the millionaire returned. He had not expected to feel drawn back, yet curiosity and perhaps a quiet sense of awe had pulled him to the hotel again. He entered quietly, scanning the lobby for the concierge. When he saw her arranging brochures near the front desk, he felt the familiar flicker of surprise. She had not changed her demeanor. She was calm, polite, and unassuming, yet he felt an undeniable pull toward her presence. He watched her from a distance, noticing the subtle grace in her movements, the quiet authority she carried without arrogance. He remembered yesterday's performance vividly, each note etched in his mind, and could not shake the sense that he had underestimated her. His usual confidence felt fragile now, as if her calm presence had quietly shifted the balance of the room. He lingered near the piano, pretending to be casual, but he could not stop himself from observing her, noting the way her hands moved, the way her posture radiated quiet strength. Guests continued to arrive, drawn by the story of the previous day. They whispered to each other, speculating about what might happen next. Some hoped she would play again. Others simply wanted to witness her presence, to feel the quiet gravity that seemed to surround her. Children peeked from behind their parents' legs, curious, fascinated by the piano and the woman who had tamed it so effortlessly. Adults leaned in, eager to see if yesterday's performance had been a rare gift, or if it was only the beginning. The concierge felt the eyes on her, but remained composed. She did not seek their attention, nor did she shy away from it. She moved with purpose, carrying herself as if the world's gaze could not disturb her. Yet she allowed herself a small moment near the piano, brushing her fingers lightly over the keys. She could feel the memory of yesterday's performance stirring within her, the music waiting to emerge. She did not play yet, only touched the instrument with a familiarity born of years of training and love. The lobby seemed to respond to her presence. Guests paused in their conversations, sensing a quiet tension building. The air felt charged, as though the piano itself anticipated what might come next. The chandeliers above sparkled in the sunlight, catching the attention of those who looked up, while the polished marble floor reflected the subtle movement of her hands. Even the flowers arranged near the piano seemed to lean slightly toward her, as if eager to witness the magic about to unfold. The millionaire could not take his eyes off her. He had come expecting nothing more than curiosity satisfied, perhaps a repetition of the previous day's excitement. Yet something had shifted. The calm in her movements, the quiet confidence in her presence, had an almost magnetic effect. He felt a strange mixture of awe, admiration, and discomfort. He realized, for the first time, that true talent did not need recognition to be powerful. Her music had spoken louder than any words, and her calm demeanor had amplified its impact. Guests began to gather naturally, drawn to the piano without being asked. Some pulled out phones, anticipating a moment worth recording, though none of them truly knew what to expect. Others simply sat, watching and waiting, their eyes fixed on her as she moved closer to the piano. The concierge allowed them to come closer, though she did not address them directly. She understood the unspoken desire to witness something extraordinary, and she was patient. She knew that music had a power all its own, and that the moment would reveal itself when it was ready. Staff members whispered quietly among themselves, noting the growing anticipation. "She's going to play again, isn't she?" One asked. "I think so," another replied, voice barely above a whisper. "But it won't be the same. Every time she plays, it's different. It's like she pours a part of herself into it." They exchanged glances, understanding that what they were about to witness could not be measured by skill alone. It was artistry, emotion, and experience combined, and they were lucky to be present. The concierge stood at the piano for a moment, her fingers hovering above the keys. She took a deep breath, feeling the memory of her training, the echo of past performances, and the quiet anticipation of the guests surrounding her. She did not rush. Each movement was deliberate, precise, filled with intention. She let her hands rest lightly, allowing the silence to settle over the room. It was a quiet pause, a breath before the music emerged, and in that moment, everyone could feel the weight of what was about to happen. The millionaire watched, a mixture of fascination and unease tugging at him. He had expected to see something impressive, perhaps even beautiful, but he had not anticipated the calm authority she carried. He realized now that her presence alone commanded attention, and that the music, when it came, would be an extension of something far deeper than mere skill. He shifted uncomfortably, trying to process the fact that he had misjudged her completely. The concierge finally let her fingers touch the keys, pressing down gently to produce a soft, clear note. The sound filled the lobby, delicate yet precise, drawing the attention of everyone present. It was not loud or showy, but it carried weight, elegance, and emo. The concierge felt the eyes of the guests on her, but she did not let it distract her. She let her fingers rest lightly on the keys, feeling the smoothness of the piano under her touch. The instrument seemed to respond to her presence, as though it recognized the connection she had with it, a bond forged over years of quiet practice and hidden passion. She did not rush. She had learned long ago that music was not something to be forced. It needed time, patience, and understanding. She waited for the right moment, and the lobby, the people, and even the millionaire seemed to sense it. Then, gently, she pressed a key. The note was soft, clear, and deliberate. It resonated in the air, touching something deep inside the hearts of everyone listening. The guests leaned forward, unable to move, their eyes fixed on her hands as they glided over the keys with skill, confidence, and ease. She closed her eyes briefly, letting the memory of past performances guide her. Each note, each chord was chosen with care, carrying emotion and meaning that words could never convey. The millionaire shifted in his seat. He had come expecting curiosity, perhaps a bit of amusement, but what he was witnessing now was far beyond his expectations. The first note had already unsettled his sense of superiority, but as the concierge continued, his discomfort grew. He tried to hide it, to maintain the arrogance that had come so naturally to him, but it was useless. The music demanded attention, respect, and humility. Every note she played seemed to speak directly to him, questioning his assumptions, challenging his pride, and demanding that he acknowledge her talent. Guests held their breath as the melody unfolded. It started slowly, almost cautiously, like a story being whispered into the room. Her fingers moved effortlessly over the keys, producing a sound that was both delicate and powerful. The notes intertwined with one another, rising and falling, creating patterns of emotion that pulled at the heart. There was joy in some moments, sorrow in others, a sense of longing that filled the space and made the audience feel as though they were part of something far greater than themselves. The lobby, which had always been just a place of transactions and movement, had transformed into a space of shared experience. Guests who had been strangers moments ago now felt a quiet connection through the music. Some closed their eyes, letting the melody wash over them. Others held onto the arms of their companions, feeling the emotion ripple through the room. Even the staff, who had grown used to the daily routines of the hotel, stopped their work to watch, captivated by the sheer beauty of what was unfolding before them. The concierge's face remained serene, though her heart raced with a quiet intensity. She had performed in private countless times, and she had played for small audiences during her youth. But this was different. The stakes were higher not because of the applause, the attention, or the expectation, but because of the presence of the millionaire. He represented the arrogance, the assumptions, and the mockery she had faced in the past, and now, through her music, she had the chance to communicate something beyond words. Her fingers moved faster now, the melody growing in complexity and intensity. The notes flowed effortlessly, creating patterns of sound that were intricate yet natural. She had trained for years to express emotion through the piano, to convey joy, sadness, hope, and longing in a way that could touch anyone listening. Every movement was precise, yet filled with feeling. The audience could sense the dedication behind each note, the discipline, the countless hours of practice, and the deep love for music that had never faded despite the years away from public performance. The millionaire leaned forward, unable to look away. He felt a strange mix of admiration, guilt, and astonishment. He had mocked her without thought, assuming she would be embarrassed or fail. Instead, he was confronted with undeniable talent, skill, and poise. The music did more than entertain, it challenged him. It reminded him that appearances could be deceiving, that arrogance could blind him, and that true ability often hid in plain sight. He had never expected to be humbled in such a profound way, and he did not yet know how to respond. Guests whispered quietly among themselves, careful not to interrupt the performance. They spoke in hushed tones, sharing observations, theories, and admiration. "She's incredible," one said softly. "I can't believe how effortlessly she plays," another replied. Children watched with wide eyes, fascinated by the fluid movement of her hands. Adults felt something stir in their hearts, memories of long-forgotten moments, dreams, or emotions they had thought buried. The Concierge's music reached each person in a unique way, drawing out feelings that could not be put into words. The melody continued to build, rising and falling with an almost cinematic quality. Each phrase carried meaning, telling a story without words. There was a rhythm to it, a natural ebb and flow that made the audience feel as though they were traveling through the Concierge's memories, her emotions, and her experiences. The notes were precise, deliberate, and yet free, like a conversation that required no explanation. She played not for applause, not for recognition, but because the music demanded expression, and she had the ability to give it life. The millionaire's gaze followed every movement of her hands. He noticed the subtle shifts of her fingers, the gentle pressure on the keys, the way she adjusted her posture to achieve the perfect sound. He realized that this was not just talent. This was mastery. She had taken the piano and made it an extension of herself, a medium through which she could communicate with the world. And in doing so, she had transformed what had started as a cruel joke into something profound, beautiful, and unforgettable. The lobby was completely silent now. The usual hum of conversation and footsteps replaced by the music. The sunlight streaming through the windows highlighted the piano's glossy surface, reflecting light across the room in patterns that seemed to dance along with the melody. Guests leaned closer, some closing their eyes, others following the movement of her hands. Even the staff, who had grown accustomed to her presence, felt a shiver of awe, realizing they were witnessing a moment that would remain etched in memory forever. The concierge's face remained calm, though her emotions ran deep. Each note carried intention, thought, and feeling. She had poured herself into the music, giving it everything she had held back for so many years. The audience could feel it, could sense the energy and dedication that had shaped every phrase. The music was no longer just sound. It had become a living expression, a bridge between her soul and those who listened. The millionaire shifted in his seat, feeling a mixture of discomfort and admiration. He had never experienced anything like this before. He had mocked her casually, assuming she would be embarrassed, and yet here she was, transforming the lobby into a space of wonder, commanding attention without arrogance, captivating without effort. He realized that he had underestimated her, underestimated the quiet strength that had always been a part of her, and now, through her music, he understood it fully. Guests were captivated, unable to look away. Some pulled out phones, though many quickly realized that no recording could capture the depth of what they were witnessing. Others simply sat, letting the music fill them completely. Children leaned forward, fascinated by the fluidity and emotion of her playing. Adults felt themselves drawn in, their hearts responding to the melody in ways that words could not express. The lobby had been transformed from a place of routine to a space of shared emotion, a living testament to the power of talent, dedication, and humility. The melody reached a crescendo, each note building upon the last with precision and grace. The audience could feel the tension and release, the rise and fall of emotion that seemed to mirror life itself. The concierge's hands moved with speed and accuracy, yet every note was deliberate, chosen with care to convey meaning. There was a story in the music, one that unfolded without words, connecting everyone present in a shared experience that was deeply human and profoundly moving. The millionaire could no longer maintain his composure. He felt exposed, humbled, and amazed. He had come seeking amusement and had instead encountered something far greater, a reminder of the depth of human talent and the power of humility. The music had broken through his assumptions, revealing that the quiet concierge he had dismissed held a strength, skill, and presence that he could not ignore. He realized that true greatness was not always visible, often hidden behind calm, ordinary exteriors, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. The guests continued to listen, completely absorbed. Some closed their eyes, letting the music carry them away. Others leaned forward, entranced by the movements of her hands, the emotion in every note. Even those who had come with casual curiosity found themselves transformed, caught in the spell of the performance. The concierge's music had become more than sound. It had become a story, a journey, a connection shared silently among everyone in the room. Finally, the melody began to slow, each note becoming more deliberate, more reflective. The audience could sense the ending approaching, and a quiet anticipation filled the room. The concierge's hands moved with precision, bringing the story to its conclusion with grace and poise. The final note lingered in the air, soft yet powerful, echoing in the hearts of all who listened. The room remained silent for a moment, as if holding its breath, reluctant to let go of. The hotel lobby was quieter than usual the next morning, but the energy in the air was unmistakable. Yesterday's performance had left a lasting impression, and though the concierge went about her duties with her usual calm, there was a new awareness around her. Guests who had witnessed the music's power shared quiet smiles, remembering the feeling of being transported by the notes, the emotions the melody had stirred, and the elegance with which the concierge had commanded the piano. Staff members moved with an added sense of respect, nodding politely when she passed and exchanging subtle glances that acknowledged her talent. It was not just the skill she displayed at the piano, it was her calm confidence, the way she carried herself without arrogance, that drew admiration. Even those who had been skeptical or dismissive before could not deny that something extraordinary had happened in the lobby. The concierge began her day as usual, arranging brochures, guiding guests to their rooms, and checking reservations. Her hands moved with familiar precision, and her face remained serene, yet there was a quiet anticipation that lingered in her heart. She had seen the way people watched her, felt the respect and admiration growing, and she knew that her moment at the piano would come again soon. She did not seek it, but she also did not avoid it. She had learned that the right time to reveal one's talent was when it was meant to be seen and heard. And that moment had arrived. The millionaire returned once more, though this time he approached the lobby with a quieter demeanor. He had come expecting curiosity, perhaps a bit of amusement, but he found himself drawn by something deeper. Yesterday had left him unsettled, questioning his assumptions and realizing that he had underestimated the quiet concierge in front of him. He watched her from a distance, noticing the grace in her movements, the calm focus she carried, and the subtle authority that seemed to surround her. Guests trickled in, some having heard of her previous performances, others drawn by the buzz that had spread through social media and word of mouth. They approached cautiously, not wanting to disturb the quiet reverence that had formed around her. The concierge acknowledged them with a polite nod and a soft smile, never allowing herself to be distracted by the attention. Yet she felt the anticipation growing, a subtle expectation that today's performance might surpass yesterday's, that the piano might once again speak in a way that words never could dot. As she moved toward the piano, guests began to gather naturally, drawn by the quiet magnetism she radiated. Some whispered quietly to each other, speculating about what they were about to hear. Children pressed close to their parents, fascinated by the grand instrument and the calm woman who would soon play it. Adults leaned forward, eager to witness the skill and emotion that had captured everyone's attention previously. Even the staff paused in their work, unable to resist the pull of anticipation that filled the room. The concierge stood at the piano for a moment, her hands hovering above the keys. She took a deep breath, feeling the familiar thrill of connection to the instrument. Her fingers traced the keys lightly, recalling the years of practice, the countless melodies she had played in private, and the memories of music that had shaped her life. This was not just a performance. It was a conversation between her and the piano, a dialogue that would touch everyone present. The first note sounded soft, precise, and deliberate. The room seemed to exhale collectively as the melody began to unfold. Guests leaned in, captivated by the elegance of each phrase, the delicate yet powerful expression that came through the music. Her fingers moved effortlessly over the keys, producing a melody that was both intricate and natural, each note chosen with care, each chord a reflection of emotion and experience. The millionaire watched, unable to look away. He had expected a simple repetition of the previous day's performance, perhaps a display of skill, but he found himself confronted with something deeper. The music was not just impressive, it was transformative. It challenged him, reminded him of the humility he lacked, and spoke directly to the parts of him he had long ignored. He realized that the quiet concierge had not only mastered the piano, but had mastered the ability to convey something profound through her art. The guests held their breath, entranced by the unfolding melody. Some closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them, feeling emotions they had not experienced in years. Others followed her hands with rapt attention, marveling at the skill, the precision, and the grace she displayed. Children leaned closer, wide-eyed with wonder, while adults felt themselves drawn into a narrative that the music created, a story without words that was nonetheless understood by every heart present. The melody began to grow, rising in complexity and intensity. The notes flowed seamlessly, intertwining with one another in patterns that were both elegant and powerful. It was clear that this was not a simple tune, but a piece crafted with skill, emotion, and experience. Each note resonated deeply, touching the hearts of those listening and creating a shared sense of awe and admiration. The concierge played with complete focus, her face serene, her body calm. Yet every movement carried energy, emotion, and intent. She had poured herself into the music, drawing on the years she had spent in private practice, the lessons learned through dedication and discipline, and the quiet love for the piano that had never left her. The audience could feel it all, the effort, the passion, and the beauty she created with each key she pressed. The millionaire shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He had come prepared to mock, or at least maintain a sense of superiority, but it was impossible now. The music demanded respect, humility, and quiet acknowledgement. He had underestimated her, and in doing so, he had been reminded that true talent often hides in plain sight. The quiet, unassuming concierge she had dismissed now held the power to captivate, challenge, and humble him with her artistry. Guests whispered quietly, careful not to disturb the flow of music. Some exchanged glances, sharing awe and admiration without words. Children sat still, mesmerized, while adults felt a stirring in their hearts, memories and emotions evoked by the depth and beauty of the melody. The concierge's music had become a living experience, a connection shared silently among everyone present, a reminder of the power of art to transform ordinary moments into something extraordinary. The melody continued to build, each phrase more intricate and expressive than the last. The audience could sense the skill, discipline, and emotion behind every note. It was clear that she had mastered not only the technical aspects of playing, but also the art of conveying feeling and narrative through sound. The piano was no longer just an instrument. It was an extension of her, a voice that spoke directly to the hearts of those listening. The lobby itself seemed to respond to the performance. The sunlight reflected off the polished surface of the piano, casting patterns across the marble floor. The chandeliers above twinkled as though in rhythm with the music, and even the flowers arranged near the piano seemed to lean toward the sound. as if acknowledging the beauty being created. The entire space had been transformed from a routine hotel lobby into a sanctuary of emotion and artistry. The millionaire felt a growing sense of awe and humility. He had entered the lobby expecting curiosity or amusement, but he found himself confronted with something far more powerful. The concierge's performance was not just about skill. It was about heart, emotion, and presence. He realized that her talent extended beyond the piano. It lay in her ability to connect with others, to communicate through music, and to transform a simple space into a place of wonder. Guests were completely absorbed. Some closed their eyes, letting the music guide them on a journey through emotion and memory. Others followed the movements of her hands, marveling at the precision, grace, and elegance of each note. Even the staff, who had long been familiar with the concierge, felt a profound sense of respect and admiration. They had witnessed her daily work, her calm demeanor, but now they saw the depth of talent and dedication that had always been part of her. The melody reached a crescendo, rising in intensity and emotion. Each note was deliberate, chosen with care to convey meaning and feeling. The audience could sense the story unfolding, the narrative created through sound and rhythm, and they were captivated. The concierge's fingers moved with speed and accuracy, yet each note carried emotion, intention, and grace. The room was alive with sound, and every listener felt connected to the music in a personal and profound way. The finale approached. The concierge's hands moved with precision, bringing the music to a gentle yet powerful conclusion. The last notes lingered in the air, soft and deliberate, echoing in the hearts of all who had heard them. The audience remained silent for a long moment, reluctant to break the spell, aware that they had just witnessed something extraordinary. The room felt transformed, filled with a sense of wonder, admiration, and emotional resonance that lingered far beyond the final note. The millionaire, humbled and moved, approached the concierge. He extended his hand, not in mockery, but with genuine respect. "I underestimated you," he said softly. "I had no idea that was incredible." She smiled faintly, acknowledging his words with quiet dignity. "Thank you," she replied. "I simply played what I felt." He nodded, understanding that words could not capture the depth and impact of her performance. Guests. The lobby was quiet as the day began, but the atmosphere was thick with anticipation. Word of the concierge's talent had spread even further since yesterday's performance. Guests arrived earlier than usual, eager to see if she would play again. Many had heard stories from friends, colleagues, or strangers who had witnessed her mastery. Some carried cameras or phones, hoping to capture a moment, while others simply watched, wanting to experience it fully without distractions. There was an energy in the air, a quiet excitement that was different from curiosity. It felt almost reverent. The concierge moved through the lobby with her usual calm demeanor, arranging flowers, checking reservations, and answering questions with polite efficiency. Yet she felt the growing anticipation around her. She did not let it affect her outward calm, but inside, her heart carried the familiar tension of preparing for something significant. She had learned to manage her nerves over the years, to channel emotion into her music rather than be overwhelmed by it. Today felt different, though today the stakes were not just attention or curiosity. There was a sense that this performance would mark a turning point for herself and for everyone watching. Staff members moved quietly, speaking in hushed tones about the expected performance. The bellhops exchanged glances, some with excitement, others with disbelief at what they had witnessed the day before. Even the cleaning staff paused in the corners, catching glimpses of her as she passed, feeling the magnetic pull of her presence. It was clear that this was no longer an ordinary hotel lobby, no longer a place of routine work. It had become a stage for something extraordinary, a space where ordinary people could witness something remarkable, The millionaire arrived once more, his steps quieter, his expression more thoughtful than before. He had been humbled by her previous performances, forced to confront his own arrogance and assumptions. Today, he felt a mix of curiosity and a desire to understand her fully. He had underestimated her, mocked her casually, and been confronted with a talent and grace he could not ignore. He approached the lobby with caution, unsure of what he might feel when he saw her perform again. Guests were gathering naturally around the piano, forming a semicircle that allowed them to see the instrument and the woman who would soon play it. The air was filled with whispers, soft conversations about yesterday's performance, and excitement for what might come next. Children pressed close to their parents, fascinated by the grand piano and the calm, elegant concierge who had transformed it into something magical. Adults leaned forward, eager to witness the unfolding story of music and emotion. Even the staff lingered, drawn to the aura of talent and humility surrounding her. The concierge approached the piano with deliberate, calm steps. Her hands hovered above the keys, and she paused for a moment, allowing herself to feel the anticipation in the room. She was aware of every eye watching her, but she did not let it shake her focus. Instead, she let the attention sharpen her awareness, guiding her to a performance that would reflect both skill and emotion. This was not about applause or recognition. It was about expression, about sharing something that could touch the hearts of those present. She pressed the first key, a soft, clear note that resonated through the lobby. The sound seemed to ripple in the air, drawing everyone's attention completely. The melody began to unfold slowly, deliberately, like a story being told in whispers. Each note carried intention, emotion, and precision, creating a sense of calm awe that filled the space. Guests leaned forward, some closing their eyes to focus entirely on the music, while others watched the movements of her hands, captivated by the elegance and control she displayed. The millionaire observed closely, unable to look away. He had expected a simple repetition of previous performances, but he was confronted once again with something far more powerful. The music was not just skillful, it was transformative. Each note seemed to challenge him, question his assumptions, and remind him of the humility he had lacked. He realized that her talent extended beyond the piano. It was her ability to connect with others, to convey emotion, and to command attention without arrogance. The melody grew in intensity, rising and falling with a natural flow that felt both structured and free. Her fingers moved with precision and grace, producing intricate patterns of sound that seemed almost effortless. The audience was captivated, feeling the music in a deeply personal way. Some closed their eyes, letting the notes carry them through memories and emotions. Others followed the movements of her hands, marveling at the speed, accuracy, and beauty she displayed. Children leaned forward in awe. Adults felt their hearts stir, and the staff stood silently, overwhelmed by the depth of her performance. Her music carried stories without words, narratives built from emotion and memory. There was joy in some phrases, longing in others, a quiet reflection of life's complexity woven into the melody. Guests felt connected, as though the music spoke directly to them, bypassing thought and reaching the heart. The lobby was transformed into a space of shared experience, where the mundane tasks of travel, check-ins, and departures faded into insignificance, replaced by a collective sense of wonder and admiration. The millionaire felt a mixture of emotions: admiration, humility, guilt, and awe. He had come expecting to mock or amuse himself, yet he was humbled by the quiet authority and skill of the concierge. She had taken what was meant to be a joke and turned it into something beautiful, profound, and unforgettable. Each note challenged him, reminding him that appearances were often deceiving and that talent, dedication, and grace could exist quietly, unnoticed, until revealed in a single moment. as the melody continued. The concierge allowed herself to close her eyes briefly, letting the music flow naturally. Her hands moved with both precision and emotion, creating a rich tapestry of sound that filled every corner of the lobby. Each phrase built upon the last, drawing the audience deeper into the narrative she was creating. The music was no longer simply notes on a scale. It was a living, breathing story, one that spoke directly to the hearts of everyone present. Guests were completely absorbed. Children remained wide-eyed, captivated by the fluidity of her hands. Adults felt their emotions stir, memories and feelings, long buried, rising to the surface. The staff, who had long known her as calm and composed, now witnessed her in a new light, a master of her craft, humble yet extraordinary. The lobby had become a sanctuary, a place where ordinary people could experience something truly remarkable through the power of music. The melody reached a crescendo, each note deliberate, powerful, and full of emotion. The audience could feel the tension, release, and energy in the music, understanding intuitively the story being told. Her fingers moved swiftly, yet every movement was controlled, each chord perfectly chosen to evoke feeling. The millionaire watched in awe, fully aware that he had been humbled, captivated, and transformed by her talent. He realized that his assumptions, his arrogance, and his mockery had been completely misplaced. The finale approached. The concierge's hands moved with precision, bringing the melody to a gentle but impactful conclusion. The last notes lingered in the air, soft yet powerful, echoing through the lobby and resonating in the hearts of all who listened. The room remained silent for a long moment, as if holding its breath, reluctant to let the magic end. Guests sat motionless, aware that they had witnessed something rare, a moment that would remain with them far beyond the performance itself. Applause erupted slowly, then grew louder, filling the lobby with genuine admiration and respect. Some guests rose to their feet, cheering quietly. Staff members joined in, clapping with heartfelt appreciation for the talent and dedication they had just witnessed. The concierge acknowledged the applause with a small, humble bow, her expression serene, her heart quietly proud but untouched by vanity. She had shared her gift, and the impact was clear to all present. The millionaire approached her, humbled and sincere. He extended his hand, not to mock, but to acknowledge her skill and grace. "I cannot express how sorry I am for doubting you," he said quietly. "You've shown me something extraordinary. I underestimated you completely." She accepted his words with a calm nod and a soft smile. "Thank you," she replied. "I played because it felt right, not to prove anything." He realized that her humility was as remarkable as her talent, and that true greatness often combines skill with quiet strength. Guests continued to discuss the performance, some replaying snippets of it in their minds, others sharing stories with friends who had not been present. The lobby had become a place of transformation, where ordinary life intersected with extraordinary talent. The concierge returned to her duties with poise and calm, aware of the admiration surrounding her, but focused on her work. She had shared her gift, reminded people of the power of humility, skill, and dedication, and left a lasting impression on all who witnessed it. By the end of the day, the story of the performance had spread even further. Word of the quiet concierge, who had captivated the lobby with her music, reached newspapers, social media platforms, and local communities. People spoke of the grace, humility, and extraordinary talent she displayed, and the hotel became known as the place where ordinary life met extraordinary art. Guests who had been present carried the memory with them, inspired by the expert.